You've probably been told to stop eating potatoes. Every doctor, every dietitian, every blood sugar guide online says the same thing: potatoes are dangerous. They spike your blood sugar, and if you're over 60, potatoes are basically poison. To be honest, they're not entirely wrong. A plain-baked potato has a glycemic index of 85 to 90, higher than white bread, higher than table sugar. One medium russet potato can raise your blood sugar by 60 to 100 points in just 30 minutes. So yes, they have a point, but here's what they never tell you. There's one preparation method, one change that takes about 5 minutes, that can reduce that blood sugar spike by up to 33%. In some clinical trials, even more. We're talking about a transformation at the molecular level. The starch itself physically changes shape. Your enzymes literally cannot break it down the same way. And what gets me is that this isn't new. This research has been published for over a decade. Lund University, the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Peer-reviewed, repeatable, solid. But most doctors don't mention it. Not because they're hiding it, but because a 15-minute appointment doesn't leave room for food chemistry. So tonight, I'm going to walk you through 7 methods, ranked from worst to best, that change how potatoes affect your blood sugar. Each one is backed by published research. And method number 1, the top of this list, actually transforms the potato at a structural level. I've never seen anything quite like it. Before we get into the 7 methods, you need to understand what's actually happening inside your body when you eat a potato. Once you see this, everything else I'm about to show you will make perfect sense. You sit down, eat a baked potato. Feels normal, tastes great, nothing dramatic. But inside, it's chaos. Within 15 minutes, glucose starts flooding into your bloodstream. Not a trickle, a flood. By the 30-minute mark, your blood sugar has spiked 60 to 100 points. Your pancreas scrambles, dumping massive amounts of insulin to bring that number back down. Here's the problem nobody explains to people over 60. As you age, your cells become less responsive to insulin. That's called insulin resistance, so the glucose stays in your blood, damaging blood vessels, stressing your kidneys, affecting your eyes, all from one potato. And the aftermath is almost worse. After 2 to 3 hours, that massive insulin response finally catches up. It overshoots, dropping your blood sugar below normal. Now you're hypoglycemic, shaky, hungry, craving more carbohydrates. The cycle starts again. Spike, crash, crave, repeat. This is the blood sugar roller coaster. It's not just uncomfortable, it's destructive. Research shows repeated glucose spikes from high glycemic foods can lead to beta cell exhaustion. Your pancreas literally wears out from overproduction. And here's what nobody talks about. If you're over 60, even without a diabetes or prediabetes diagnosis, your pancreas has been doing this for decades. Decades of glucose spikes, insulin surges, and wear and tear on a small cluster of cells that cannot regenerate. Every time you eat a hot-baked potato without preparation, you're asking those worn-out beta cells to sprint. At some point, they can't sprint anymore. That's when your doctor says, "Your numbers are getting high, we should talk about medication." But what if you could take the same potato and change how your body processes it? What if you could turn that sprint into a walk? That's what this video is about. Potatoes are especially dangerous compared to other starches because of the type of starch inside. Potatoes are dominated by a molecule called amylopectin. It's branched with a massive surface area. Your digestive enzymes can attack it from hundreds of points at once, so it breaks down very fast. That's why glucose hits your bloodstream like a freight train. But there's another type of starch called amylose. Amylose is linear, compact, much harder for your enzymes to access. Under the right conditions, you can force amylopectin to rearrange into structures that behave more like amylose. That's the science behind everything I'm about to show you. Every method on this list works by slowing down how fast that starch converts to glucose. Some methods do it a little, and one method does it dramatically. Let's start with the least effective and work our way up. Method number 7 is the weakest on the list, and honestly the one that frustrates me the most. Just eat a smaller portion. You've heard this. Your doctor has probably said it. A little bit of potato is fine, just watch your portion size. The math isn't wrong. Half a potato means fewer total grams of carbohydrate. That's basic arithmetic. But here's what they're not telling you. Even a quarter cup of mashed potato, about the size of a golf ball, has a glycemic index in the 80s. The glycemic index doesn't change with portion size, only the glycemic load changes. And for someone with insulin resistance, even a moderate glycemic load from a high GI food can trigger a disproportionate response. Think of it this way. A cup of gasoline versus half a cup. It's still gasoline. The danger isn't just the amount, it's the nature of the substance. Small portions of potato still spike your blood sugar, just slightly less. For most people over 60 with any degree of insulin resistance, slightly less isn't good enough. Why is this even on the list? Because it's better than nothing, and because I want you to understand the baseline. This is where most dietary advice stops. Eat less. That's it. And for most people over 60 with insulin resistance, that advice is inadequate. It's like telling someone with a leaky roof to put out fewer buckets. Technically better, but you still have a leaky roof. If you're at a family dinner and you absolutely cannot avoid potatoes, take a smaller portion as the minimum viable strategy. It's a seatbelt. It won't prevent the crash, but it might reduce the damage. If you use the portion approach, stick to a quarter cup maximum, about the size of a golf ball, and never eat it alone. Always pair it with something else. That brings me to the methods above this one. Effectiveness rating. About 10 to 15% reduction in total glucose exposure. Not the spike itself, just the total volume your body has to process. But we can do much better. Method number 6 surprises people. The skin of a potato contains fiber, not a massive amount, about 2 grams per medium potato. But fiber does something important. It creates a physical barrier that slows enzymatic access to the starch inside. Think of it like wrapping a candy bar in cellophane versus leaving it unwrapped. The unwrapped one dissolves immediately. The wrapped one makes your body work harder to get through that outer layer first. When you eat a potato with the skin on, the fiber mixes with the starch during digestion and slows glucose absorption slightly. Some studies show a modest reduction in the glycemic response, around 10 to 12%, compared to a peeled potato. Not life-changing, but additive, and that's important to understand. These methods stack. You don't just pick one, you layer them. By the time we get to method number 1, you'll see how powerful that layering becomes. The type of potato matters here too. Red potato skin has slightly more fiber than russet skin. Sweet potato skin, if you actually eat it, has even more. But the principle is the same across varieties. I had a viewer email me last month. She'd been peeling potatoes her entire life, 72 years old. Her daughter showed her this research, and she started leaving the skins on. She said, "I can't believe something that small could matter." She tested her blood sugar before and after, and saw a difference. Not dramatic, but measurable and consistent. That's the thing about blood sugar management after 60. It's not one big dramatic change. It's a dozen small consistent changes that add up over weeks and months. Practical note, mashed potatoes are the worst preparation for blood sugar. You've removed the skin and broken down every cell structure. You've essentially pre-digested the starch for your body. Your enzymes barely have to do anything. Mashed potatoes have a glycemic index of about 87 to 90, higher than a freshly baked potato and higher than most candy bars. Instant mashed potatoes are even worse. The processing has already destroyed every natural barrier. So if you're going to eat potatoes at all, leave the skin on. Baked potato with skin, roasted potato wedges with skin, cubed and tossed in olive oil with the skin still attached. Never mashed, never peeled, never instant. Small change, but it stacks with everything else I'm about to show you. Method number 5 is where things get interesting, because we're about to leave the potato itself and talk about what you eat with the potato. Think about the last time you ate a potato. Was it by itself? Probably not. But I bet there were times when the potato was the main event on your plate. A loaded baked potato, French fries as a side, hash browns at breakfast with mostly bread and juice. When you eat a potato alone or with other carbohydrates, there's nothing slowing down that glucose avalanche. But when you pair that potato with protein, things change. A study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition measured the glycemic response to a plain potato versus a potato eaten with a chicken breast, a small amount of oil, and a side salad. The glycemic index of the plain mashed potato was 108. With the protein and fat, it dropped to 54, a 50% reduction just by adding protein and fat to the same meal. Why does this work? 2 reasons. First, protein and fat slow gastric emptying. Your stomach takes longer to push food into your small intestine, where glucose absorption happens. Instead of a glucose wave in 15 minutes, it trickles in over 60 to 90 minutes. Second, protein stimulates a hormone called GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1. GLP-1 not only slows digestion further, it also helps your pancreas produce insulin more effectively. So you get a better insulin response with a slower glucose curve. The practical rule is simple. Never eat a potato alone. Always pair it with a solid protein source, chicken, fish, eggs, even a good portion of cheese, and a fat source like olive oil or butter. This applies to every starchy food, not just potatoes. Method number 4. When I first saw the research on this, I was skeptical. Vinegar? That sounds like an old wives' tale. But it's not. Researchers at Lund University in Sweden ran a study specifically on vinegar and potatoes. They tested 4 meals: freshly boiled potatoes, cold-stored potatoes with a vinaigrette dressing, and white bread as a control. All meals had the same amount of available carbohydrate. Cold storage alone increased resistant starch and improved the blood sugar response. But when they added vinegar dressing to the cold-stored potatoes, the combination produced the lowest glycemic and insulin response of any meal tested. Why? The acetic acid in vinegar does 3 specific things. First, it inhibits an enzyme called alpha amylase, the enzyme in your saliva and small intestine that breaks starch into glucose. Less enzyme activity means slower starch digestion. Second, acetic acid slows gastric emptying, similar to protein, but through a different mechanism. It literally delays how fast food moves from your stomach into your small intestine. Third, and this really got my attention, acetic acid appears to improve insulin sensitivity in skeletal muscle. A systematic review and meta-analysis in diabetes research and clinical practice found that vinegar intake can meaningfully reduce post-meal glucose and insulin responses, especially when consumed with high glycemic meals. The practical protocol: 1 to 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, or any vinegar, it's the acetic acid that matters, mixed in water, consumed 5 to 10 minutes before eating any potato or starchy meal. Or even simpler, dress your potato salad with an olive oil and vinegar dressing. Same effect, and it tastes good. A warning: if you're on certain medications, especially diabetes medications that already lower blood sugar, adding vinegar could potentially drop your blood sugar too low. Talk to your doctor before implementing this. Method number 3 is where most people go, wait, what? Nobody told me about this. Here's a question: When do you usually eat potatoes? Dinner, right? Most Americans eat their heaviest starch at dinner: mashed potatoes with gravy, a baked potato with steak, fries with a burger at 7 to 5 p.m. That's a big mistake, and it has nothing to do with the potato itself. It has to do with your circadian rhythm. Your insulin sensitivity changes throughout the day. In the morning and early afternoon, your cells are most responsive to insulin. They open up and accept glucose efficiently. Your pancreas doesn't have to work as hard. But as evening approaches, insulin sensitivity drops significantly. The same food that causes a moderate blood sugar response at noon can cause a massive spike at dinner. Research on circadian glucose metabolism confirms this pattern. Your body is designed to process carbohydrates earlier in the day, so the timing rule for potatoes and any starchy carbohydrate is simple. If you're going to eat potatoes, eat them at breakfast or lunch, never at dinner, never in the evening. I know that sounds backwards. Potatoes at breakfast? But think about it. A small portion of roasted potato wedges with eggs and vegetables at 8 a.m. is handled completely differently than the same potato at 7 p.m. This single change, moving starchy carbohydrates to earlier in the day, can reduce the blood sugar impact by roughly 25 to 30% compared to eating the same food at night. Not because the food changed, but because your body's ability to handle it changed. For people over 60, this effect is even more pronounced, because age-related insulin resistance is worse in the evening. Your blood sugar response to any carbohydrate is worse at night. The later you eat starch, the higher and longer the spike. Method number 2 might be the most underrated blood sugar strategy I've ever seen. It costs nothing, takes 0 extra preparation, and the research is stunning. It's called food sequencing, the order in which you eat the foods on your plate. A 2025 study in Diabetescare, the official journal of the American Diabetes Association, tested what happens when people with type 2 diabetes eat their carbohydrates last versus first in a meal. Same foods, same quantities, same meal, just different order. When participants ate their vegetables and protein first and saved carbohydrates for last, their incremental glucose peaks were reduced by 44% compared to eating carbohydrates first. 44%, same meal, different order. And this wasn't a one-off finding. A Japanese research team studied this approach for 2 years in patients with type 2 diabetes and found sustained improvements in blood sugar control just from eating vegetables before carbohydrates at every meal. Why does this work? Same principles: vegetables and protein fill your stomach first, creating a fiber and protein barrier that slows gastric emptying. By the time the potato arrives in your small intestine, your digestion is already in slow mode. The glucose trickles in instead of flooding. The practical rule is dead simple. Step 1. Eat your non-starchy vegetables first. Salad, broccoli, green beans, whatever is on your plate. Step 2. Eat your protein next: chicken, fish, eggs. Step 3. Wait 5 to 10 minutes if you can. Step 4. Now eat the potato last. That's it. You don't change what you eat, just the order, and you get a 40% plus reduction in your blood sugar spike. Before I reveal method number 1, I need to warn you about 4 mistakes that will cancel out everything I just taught you. These are research-backed and real. Mistake number 1, potato plus a sugary drink. If you eat a potato and wash it down with soda, sweet tea or juice, you just doubled your glucose load. The liquid sugar hits your bloodstream even faster than the potato starch. Now your pancreas is fighting 2 glucose waves at once, and the insulin response goes haywire. Even diet soda is problematic because artificial sweeteners can trigger a cephalic insulin response. Your body releases insulin just from tasting sweet. Drink water or the vinegar water from method number 4. Never a sweet drink with potatoes. Mistake number 2, potato plus white bread. This sounds obvious, but it happens constantly. A burger with fries, a baked potato with dinner rolls. You're stacking high glycemic foods on top of each other. There's no protein or fibre buffer, just starch on starch. Every starchy food amplifies the glycemic impact of the other. This isn't addition, it's multiplication. Mistake number 3, potato plus late night plus no activity. If you combine a late evening potato with no physical activity afterward and then go to bed, you've created the worst possible scenario. Your insulin sensitivity is at its lowest, your muscles aren't pulling glucose out of your blood because you're sedentary, and overnight your liver adds even more glucose through gluconeogenesis. This is how people wake up with fasting blood sugar in the 140s and have no idea why. Mistake number 4, potato plus overcooking. The more you cook a potato, especially boiling or mashing, the more you break down the starch granule structure. You're essentially predigesting it. Mashed potatoes and instant potatoes have the highest glycemic response of any potato preparation, even higher than French fries in some studies. If you overcook your potato and eat it fresh and hot, you've maximized the glycemic index to about 94-95. You've created the single worst blood sugar food you can eat. So the kill list: never combine potatoes with sugary drinks, never stack potatoes with other refined starches, never eat potatoes late at night without activity, and never overcook and serve them fresh. Now, method number 1. This is the single most powerful thing you can do to change how a potato affects your blood sugar. It's backed by research from multiple universities, published in peer-reviewed journals, repeatable, measurable, and almost unbelievably simple. Here's what you do. Cook your potato. Any method, boil, bake, roast, it doesn't matter. Then put it in the refrigerator for at least 12 hours. Overnight is perfect. Then reheat it. Microwave, oven, pan, whatever you prefer, that's it. Cook, cool, reheat. What just happened? Something extraordinary. When you cook a potato, the starch granules swell and become gelatinized. That's why a cooked potato is soft. That gelatinized starch is extremely easy for your enzymes to break down, which is why fresh hot potatoes spike your blood sugar so aggressively. But when you cool that cooked potato, the starch molecules, specifically the amylose chains, begin to realign. They form tightly packed crystalline structures through a process called retrogradation. These new structures are what scientists call resistant starch type 3, RS3. Resistant starch resists digestion. Your small intestine enzymes cannot break it down efficiently. So instead of being absorbed as glucose, it passes through to your large intestine, where gut bacteria ferment it, producing short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which actually improve insulin sensitivity and reduce inflammation. Research in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that cold storage of boiled potatoes increased resistant starch content from 3.3% to 5.2% on a starch basis, a significant increase. A study in Nutrients found that chilled potatoes reduced glucose spikes and insulin levels compared to freshly cooked potatoes. And the critical finding: this resistant starch persists even after reheating. The crystallized amylose structures are thermally stable. Reheating to normal serving temperatures reverses only about 20 to 25% of the resistant starch formation. Clinical studies show this cook-cool-reheat method can reduce the blood sugar spike from potatoes by 25 to 40%. And here's what makes this even more powerful. You can do it multiple times. Research in the International Journal of Food Sciences and Nutrition tested multiple heating and cooling cycles on tubers and found that repeated cycles further increased resistant starch content 3 cycles produced significantly more resistant starch than a single cycle. So if you really want to maximize this effect, cook a batch of potatoes on Sunday, cool them overnight, reheat Monday, cool again, reheat Tuesday. Each cycle creates more resistant starch. Let me give you a practical picture of what this looks like in real life, because I know some of you are thinking this sounds like a lot of work. It's not. Sunday evening, boil or bake 6 medium potatoes, about 30 minutes of mostly hands-off time. Let them cool on the counter for half an hour, then put them in a container in the fridge. Done. That's your 5 minutes of actual effort. Monday, pull 2 potatoes out, slice them up, toss them in a pan with olive oil and a splash of vinegar, maybe some rosemary and garlic. Reheat for 10 minutes and eat them alongside your eggs at breakfast or with a chicken breast at lunch. Tuesday, do the same with 2 more. Wednesday, the last 2. 1 batch, 1 cooking session, 3 days of potato meals that have fundamentally different blood sugar effects. And here's something that surprised me when I dug into this research. Potato salad, the kind made with cooled potatoes, olive oil and vinegar, is actually one of the lowest glycemic potato preparations you can eat. It naturally incorporates the cook-cool method, the vinegar protocol, and the fat pairing all in one dish. Grandma's potato salad turns out she was ahead of the science. Here's your step-by-step action plan. Knowing all 7 methods means nothing if you don't implement them, so let me make this as simple as possible. Start tonight. Step 1. Cook a batch of potatoes today. Boil or bake 5 or 6 medium potatoes. Do them all at once, then put them in the refrigerator in a covered container for at least 12 hours. Longer is better. 24 hours is even better. Step 2. Tomorrow morning or at lunchtime, not dinner, reheat them. Microwave for 2 to 3 minutes. Oven at 375 degrees AHML for about 10 minutes. Or stovetop in a pan with a little olive oil. Step 3. Before you eat that potato, eat your vegetables first. A side salad, steamed broccoli, green beans, whatever you have. Then your protein, chicken, fish, eggs. Wait 5 to 10 minutes if you can manage it. Then eat the potato last. Step 4. Drizzle the potato with an olive oil and vinegar dressing before eating. Apple cider vinegar, white wine vinegar, red wine vinegar. It's the acetic acid that does the work, not the flavour. Step 5. Keep the skin on, always. Never peel, never mash. Roasted wedges or cubed pieces with the skin intact are your best options. Step 6. Never eat potatoes alongside bread, rice, pasta, or another starchy food. 1 starch per meal if you're having potatoes. The potato is your starch, nothing else. Step 7. Test yourself. Get a simple glucose monitor if you don't have one. Check your blood sugar before eating, then again at 30 minutes and 60 minutes. Write down the numbers. Do this for 1 week. Here's what's going to happen. The first time you eat a cook-cool reheat potato with vinegar dressing, paired with protein and vegetables, eaten first at lunchtime, and you see your blood sugar number, you're going to think something must be wrong with the meter. It's not wrong. That's what happens when you stack all 7 methods together. 1 preparation change, 5 minutes, and the science says your blood sugar response drops by 1/3. In some cases, significantly more. That's not a miracle, not a supplement you have to buy, not a prescription. That's chemistry. Simple, repeatable, food chemistry. And it's available to you right now, starting tonight.